President Donald Trump says negotiations over the so-called Phase 1 trade deal with China are ahead of schedule. The two countries' leaders are expected to sign the agreement on the sidelines of the APEC summit in Chile in mid-November. Washington correspondent Giles Gibson reports.
President Trump told reporters that the deal would take care of the farmers and, quotes, a lot of the banking needs. China and the US have agreed a deal in principle that includes a pause on tariff escalation and concessions on intellectual property issues. However, existing tariffs in the trade war would remain in place, and it does not cover highly sensitive issues like the role of state-owned enterprises in the Chinese economy. On Friday, US officials announced they'd made headway on specific issues after a call with top Chinese negotiators, adding to expectations that Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping will put pen to paper in Chile.
Alberto Fernandez will be the next president of Argentina after an election dominated by the country's economic crisis. The centre-left opposition candidate beat the conservative incumbent Mauricio Macri. Richard Branson's Virgin Galactic has started trading shares on the New York Stock Exchange, becoming the first ever space tourism company to go public. From New York, Gillian Wolfe reports.
Virgin Galactic's public debut marks a key moment in recreational space travel, with Sir Richard Branson predicting people will pay top dollar for a ticket. 600 customers have already signed up, including Justin Bieber and Leonardo DiCaprio. But if $250,000 is a little out of reach, you can now opt to own a small share of the company. Following a merger with a venture capitalist firm, the company has a combined valuation of $1.5 billion, with founder Sir Richard Branson holding a 51% controlling stake.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
What if I could tell you that a full-blown wildfire was going to occur tomorrow, right where you live? Tell you exactly which neighborhoods it would engulf and how fast it would do it. The first thing you would do is talk with your loved ones and make a plan today. It's true, I can't tell you a wildfire will strike tomorrow, but shouldn't you make a plan anyway? Go to ready.gov/communicate and make your emergency plan today. Don't wait, communicate. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived in Philadelphia. Local time is 3:05 p.m. and the temperature is 67 degrees. At this time, you are now free to use your cellular devices.
You know that feeling when you get to turn your phone on after the plane lands? You can have that feeling every time you drive. Make sure your cell phone is stowed away whenever you are behind the wheel.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org, a message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Hey, it's me, your cell phone. We need to talk about something serious. I know you love me, I know you like using me wherever you are, but I feel like this isn't working out when you're driving. I know you may think that it's possible to focus both on me and the road, but I just don't feel the same way. I think we should spend time away from each other when you're driving. It's for the best.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org, a message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the Dog Show. Up next, we have Satchmo. Satchmo is a member of the Shelter Pet Group.
That's right, a group known especially for their couch-snuggling, ball-chasing, face-licking, and, of course, companionship. Now, let's see him in action.
Look how he makes eye contact with his person.
That's actually known as the treat stare.
How intuitive, and now he appears to be excitedly turning in circles.
Ah, the happy dance will come in with this group.
But really, the best way to know an amazing shelter pet like Satchmo is to meet one.
Visit theshelterpetproject.org today. Adopt.
Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
This is a test of the emergency podcast system. Activated by contract termination. Rumors of our demise are greatly exaggerated. Welcome to Stacy on the Right with your host, Stacy Washington. She's blessed to be a Bible-reading, gun-toting, Air Force veteran, wife and mom, righteously American.
Hey everybody, welcome to the program. So we have so much going on today. It's really a pleasure to be with you. I hope your weekend was fantastic, and welcome to the show. broadcasting also live on LifeZet TV. And I'm so excited about that, you guys. It's going pretty well, but how do we get more of this fantastic content for you? Well, you got to share the show. So post it up on your LinkedIn page, post it up on your Facebook, wherever you feel like, hey, people are watching or listening for news and information and they could use a little bit of that SOTR action. Then put it up there. We'd love to have it there and see what kind of reactions we get from that. Today on the show, we are going to be talking about actually just kind of a total rundown of a bunch of different things. We're going to talk about the raid that President Trump executed. Well, our U.S. Armed Forces executed a raid under the command and control of President Donald Trump as Commander-in-Chief of the U.S. Armed Forces. And this was someone that we'd had our eye on for quite a bit. We're going to get into that in the second segment. Right now, we're going to jump into this information about President Trump saying we're going to keep the oil captured in Syria and the Antifa thug getting 18 months for attacking a Trump supporter. We are also going to hear from the president. I have a little bit of audio of him talking about how the raid went down. And then, of course, I have some audio from Defense Secretary Mark Esper. Now, I thought this was interesting because he was on one of the morning shows with Martha Raddatz, and she actually had quite a bit of information herself. And so the questions she asked him were very interesting. And he was able to share. There's also that picture that's going around, viral image of the president in the Situation Room, watching everything as it unfolds. And so the thing that I think is pretty interesting about the president watching it as it unfolds is we think of the president and in all these situations, we think of him as being, he's doing whatever he's doing, right? He finds out there's something going on. This is early in the morning. And so he comes down and he has to be dressed like he can't come down in his PJs. He has to come down dressed as himself, full suit. And he has to watch this. And while he's watching it, because he said it was almost like a movie, the only caveat there is that everyone involved is a living person that if they die on the screen, that would be a death in real life because it's happening in real time. So yes, like watching a movie, but no, not really, because in movies, when people die, it's upsetting. At least for me, it is. I get upset when I see the main character or someone that you're rooting for, like the protagonist, they get killed. That to me is, well, it's really anti-American type movie making because in America, we always have a happy ending. We're an optimistic country. And Hollywood of late has taken to killing off main characters because they say they want things to be more realistic. Well, people don't watch movies for realism. Movies are supposed to be an escape from reality into a fantasy world where you can be entertained for a little bit before you come back to reality, which is brutal. But I digress. That is something that is completely different about this operation is that the president was watching it in real time. And so if any of our troops had been harmed or lost, it would have been a devastating blow for him to see that happening during an operation. Nevertheless, they knew that they were going to be executing this and they were excited about it. And so I'm once again all up in, praise mode about the U.S. Armed Forces and what they're able to do when they're out there. They're just getting stuff done, breaking stuff, blowing stuff up, getting stuff done. Loving it. So we'll delve into that next segment. Right now, I want to talk about the president saying we're going to keep the oil captured in Syria. And the reason why I'm so supportive of this action is because the president said he would do that. He's been saying this for 30 years. He used to say it at meetings at the New York city council meetings that he would go to when they would ask him about foreign policy. They treated him like he was a president way back then. They also had interviews of him on 60 Minutes and other places where he talked about the fact that he would keep the oil. He's basically using a concept that in the business world, it's not at all unusual for business owners to say, in the course of helping you to achieve your goal, whatever the goal is when they're doing a deal, we're going to incur certain costs and to offset those costs. And then they lay out what they want, whether it's stock, ownership rights, seats on the board, material support in the way of it's a loan. We're giving you this in exchange. We're going to receive this much in value from you later when your company is, when the valuation reaches X. I mean, there's no end to the amount of creativity that can be executed to make sure that everyone who's involved is properly repaid for their contribution. So this is normal. So this is over at therightscoop.com. And I just was like, just feeling as if It's about time. Why haven't any of the other presidents? It's almost like as Americans, we're expected to contribute and not get anything in return for our contribution, even if the contribution we've made comes in the form of American lives. Oh, well, America has a volunteer force. If anybody goes out and gets killed on behalf of something they're doing in a foreign country, that's what they signed up for. Okay, you did sign up. I know how this works. I signed up. I said I would do whatever I was told to do. I would be a military asset. There I would be. But are you saying to me that because I signed up, there shouldn't be any compensation, not just for the American lives? Because how can you really pay us back for the lives that we lose? You can't. Our lives are priceless, but we give them up in support of what we're doing. But you're saying we can't have anything in the way of compensation to help offset the value taxpayers are adding? People are working really hard to pay their taxes. So we should have something in return. So here we are. The president says we are keeping the oil captured in Syria and we are bringing the troops home. So he was up on Twitter, and this was on the October 25th. The reason it's important is because other people have made big talk, but here he is. He's about to actually do what he said he would do. He took to Twitter saying that Turkey isn't going to shoot any Kurds still leaving the safe zone that the president has set up. Here's what he said. Turkey fully understands not to fire on the Kurds as they leave what will be known as a safe zone for other fairly nearby areas. I don't have to repeat that large-scale sanctions will be imposed for violations. Going well. ISIS secured by Kurds with Turkey ready as backup. So remember, all over usage of the word Kurds refers to all Kurds of any kind, anywhere. Some Kurds, just like other ethnic minorities over there, have gotten split off, and some of them are doing terrorism, so they're on the wrong side of this fight, and some are on our side and have been very helpful to us. So this blanket characterization of Kurds as people that we universally help is a very uninformed and kind of ignorant way of describing what's happening in the Middle East. Kurds are not one monolithic group of people. They are not all people that we're supporting and on the same side as. We are on the same side as many Kurds, but again, checking to make sure that information is accurate and correct. Trump also says that our soldiers are coming home and that we're apparently keeping the oil that we've captured. So here's another missive from him that he sent out. USA has gained trillions of dollars in wealth since November of 2016. All others are way down. Our power is economic before having to use our newly rebuilt military, a much better alternative. Oil is secured. Our soldiers have left and are leaving Syria for other places. Then they're coming home. We put coming home in all caps. We were supposed to be there for 30 days. That was 10 years ago. When these pundit fools who have called the Middle East wrong for 20 years ask what we are getting out of the deal, I simply say the oil, and we are bringing our soldiers back home. ISIS secured. So Trump said the other day that we'd have a few troops remain to protect the oil that was captured, and that it would be determined at a later date what would happen to it. So I guess the president has now decided, hey, we're keeping that stuff. Now, I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. He has always said in the past, hey, in Iraq, we should keep the oil. Because if you just think of the numbers we're talking about here, we've been in the Middle East for 30 years. And at one point, just a few years ago, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, they estimated that the monthly expenditure for being in Iraq and Afghanistan was $1 billion a month. Now, I know some people, they like to say, well, I am just so, I am just so against us keeping anything. We're America and we can. No, we're not. We're not an endless piggy bank. We're not people you just can, actually just keep spending money in perpetuity and we never ever need to get anything back. We should have some kind of a expectation that we're going to be repaid in some way for all the work that we do around the world, policing everybody's backyard, putting all of our military assets in everybody's backyard, not just our people, but the resources, all of it. It's expensive for us, and we need to have some kind of remuneration for that. And if people balk at that, then we should say, well, then we're not going to send, everything we've got. We're not going to send you the same number of people and assets that we had before. And if that means, because the worry is, well, if America doesn't do it, then the Russians will come in and the Russians will be ascendant. Really? The Russians prop their military up with every other part of the economy, meaning that they don't do things for their citizens and they don't have the same resources that we have. They don't even have the same number of people that we have anymore. We are no longer on par, or they're no longer on par with us as far as population is concerned. So they look like they're similar to us in military might, but that's because they gut every other area of their economy, including healthcare, in order to make that show of strength and power. So the chance that they're actually going to be able to do the same things that we do overseas, well, that's not exactly, it's obviously not the case. You know how we know that? Because last year or the year before, General Mattis went before a congressional committee and he was testifying, and one of the little dingbat congressional members from the left said, well, what's happening over there and why are we doing X, Y, and Z? I heard we killed 200 people. And he was like, yeah, we went in and we killed 200 Russian mercenaries. They were in the way, and so we wiped them out. So if we can wipe out 200 of their mercenaries, and he didn't even bat an eye, that was like a nothing burger to him. It was less than a nothing burger. He didn't even call it a nothing burger. Then it's not a level playing field. Yeah, they have nukes. They have some old dried up nukes, and we have a ton, and they have some, and so what, right? So just come on, let's keep things on a proper footing. So we have to be concerned about them. We have to pay attention to them. They're an adversary as well as a quote unquote ally, but they're not on par with us. And I think that in order for us to be accurate when we're talking about what's happening over there, yes, the Russians could move in and do a little something, but they're not going to be able to do what we're able to do. So it's okay for us to say in some of these areas, we're just not going to police every little, miniature poodle and every little, corner with a couple of little hybrid arborvitae on it. We're just not going to do every single thing over there. Let somebody else carry some of the load. And when we do carry the load, we're going to expect to be paid in oil, because that's what they have over there in plenty. We don't want their other main export, which is those poppy, the heroin. We don't want that. So we're going to take, we capture some oil. We're going to take it. We're going to load it into a tanker. We're going to bring it back over to the U.S. because we're a net oil exporter now. And if we come to your country and we do a whole bunch of work for you, you're going to need to pay us. And if you can't pay us in currency, then we'll take your other primary currency, which is oil, and we'll use it. I've always been a proponent of him doing that. And so it's not a shock to me that he did it. And so one more story here before we get over to the Antifa thugs. Remember we talked about Democrat Katie Hill last week and how she was in a threesome or a throuple relationship with her husband and one of her staffers. And then she left the two of them, her own husband and the staffer, for another staffer of hers that was a man. So her husband was angry about the whole situation. I guess I don't know how angry he could be if they were both having an affair together with another person. What he thought, what did he think his wife was into? Like, that's what they were doing together. So he's going to be shocked that she left, got tired of the two of them and went for somebody else that she could have on her own. Kind of silly of him. So Democrat Katie Hill will resign over the sex scandal that she was embroiled in. She's a freshman representative and she's resigning from Congress after facing allegations of inappropriate sexual relationships with staffers, multiple. She's set to resign by the end of the week. And this was reported yesterday. So she was under investigation by the House Ethics Committee for allegations of an improper sexual relationship with a male congressional staffer. She first denied the claim. Then she admitted to and apologized for an inappropriate relationship with a female campaign staffer earlier this week. And then, even more. So Californian voters, looks like there's still some morality going on out there. We know because we have some California listeners right here in this audience. That's something. All right, when we get back, we're going to listen to that audio from the president and so much more. So keep it here.
Let's be honest. The National Symphony may not be in his future, but he wanted to try violin. So you said yes because you love him. And if you love him that much, love him enough to make sure he's buckled up and in the back seat. Find out more about keeping your kids safe in your vehicle at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat. Show him you love him. Keep him safe. Visit nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Man, do I love card night. You ready, boys? You got a king?
Go, fish dad.
Oh, come on. This is WWE superstar Titus O'Neil. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today. Learn more at 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Hey, Kevin, thinking about saving for retirement?
Yeah, but how do I start?
It's easy with Avo, a retirement coach. Let's learn the Avo bet. A is for taking action.
Not anxiety?
No, Kevin, you're gonna be fine.
You sing?
Barely. V is for variety.
Huh, change up my strategy. Okay.
O is for optimize your savings.
Let Avo lead the way.
Visit aceyourretirement.org today. A message from AARP and the Ad Council.
Tom has been a teacher for over 40 years. One day, I think one of the students had asked the question and he didn't remember the answer. And I also noticed that he was letting his class out earlier than they were supposed to let out. I was really starting to worry.
Levi and I talked about how it would change our lives, but he was there beside me.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
You're not wired to have a response to
Last
this.
night, the United
You're
States
neutral to it, and you can hear it repeatedly without feeling anything. But when we introduce a new stimulus, save the food, we've achieved pulling a natural or inborn response from you. Save the food, because 40% of all food in the US never gets eaten. Save the food. Cook it, store it, share it. Just don't waste it. For tips and recipes, visit savethefood.com. Brought to you by NRDC and the Ad Council.
Listen, as a hiring manager, I've got to tell you, the best job candidate isn't always the typical candidate. Sometimes they're a grad of life.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
Sometimes the best candidates aren't the ones you're used to.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Welcome back to Stacy on the Right.
Right, Martha. Let me first say, as the president said earlier, this is a great day for America.
Welcome back to the program. Thank you so much for being here today. Find out more at lifezettv.com. It's lifezettv.com. Actually, it's not lifezettv.com. Okay, I got to stop doing that. Hold on a second. It's lifezett.com. And then you click over at the top left-hand corner. It says LifeZett TV. It's the first one. You just click on whichever show you want to watch there. And we have some fantastic programs. Hot Zone, Higby and Palumbo, me, The Rob Maness Show, Wayne Dupree Show, and Voice of American Law Enforcement. And then corresponding websites for all of those as well. And I just want to tell y'all, they're doing my website too. And I don't mean them, not LifeZett, but we have someone who's working on my actual website to upgrade it and make it much more news and information friendly. And we'll have more regular posts over there. So you'll be able to get news from there and actually share it on Facebook, whatever you want to do. Okay. So let's now dig into the details of this raid. I thought one of the best parts of this was my actual, and if you're watching the live stream, you see me wagging my phone around here. I was just minding my own business on Sunday. So you guys know we sometimes have our college age kids will just zip home for the weekend. And this was one of those weekends. So they were home, and after church on Sunday, we got a bite to eat. And then we changed clothes and went over to the Pompeii exhibit over at the St. Louis Science Center. And so I'm going to say, if you have this come to your town, because it's traveling all over the country, if it comes to your town, to your science center or your museum, it's worth the $20. It's $20 a person. And we were able to get free parking right there at the St. Louis Science Center, but they had like $5 parking as well. And I'm not sure, I got to say, it said on the website there was $5 parking. I don't know where that was, but anyway, they, wow, it was a great exhibit. It was fantastic. I put some pictures up on my Instagram account, Stacy on the Right, and it was a great time for us. It takes about an hour from beginning to end, and it's worth it. It's a huge Like, peel back the layers of time, the hundreds of years, and you're there, and you're in Pompeii. You're in this. It was a very similar culture to ours, but in a lot of ways kind of different, like, historically speaking. So anyway, we did that over the weekend. And while I was out after church, as I was just checking my email, you know how you just go on like you're in the car, right? I was riding along and I checked, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my goodness, they had a big raid this morning in the al-Baghdadi. Yeah, wow, that's something. That was going on. Okay, programming notes. So I'm just going to quickly, before we get to this audio, I'm going to transition you over if you're watching the live stream so you can see the chat room. And we have Tracy. Can they fix your website so we can see you in chat at the same time? So I don't know if you're chatting on a mobile unit, but no. So that is set up. That chat was set up by Noah, and we're using the software from his company. And that is pretty much how it's going on over there. I think what people take for granted, and I know you guys are awesome, so I'm not criticizing, but I am saying, when you see these fancy interfaces on YouTube where you have the window on one side and the chat's on the right side of the screen and all of that kind of integration, we're talking about websites like YouTube. Do you know how big YouTube is? Comparatively speaking, scale and size, my website to that, wow. So I would hope for that, and I will definitely ask. But the number one on the priority is mainly to get the site more friendly for the ability to be able to have more different actual channels for you as far as news and information. But we'll still have the live stream, and there will still be some form of chat there. Let me make a note that I will ask about that. So back to so please excuse that regularly scheduled programming and information break there. Now we'll get to the president. So the president was discussing what happened, and he came out, and he was in, obviously the president just has a real gift for this kind of stuff, for sharing in his own voice, not just reading off the teleprompter something that sounds like someone else wrote it. And so here he is describing what happened in the wee hours of the morning, halfway across the globe, U.S. Armed Forces getting the thing done.
Last night, the United States brought the world's #1 terrorist leader to justice. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is dead. He was the founder and leader of ISIS, the most ruthless and violent terror organization anywhere in the world. The United States has been searching for Baghdadi for many years. Capturing or killing Baghdadi has been the top national security priority of my administration. U.S. Special Operations Forces executed a dangerous and daring nighttime raid in northwestern Syria and accomplished their mission in grand style. The U.S. personnel were incredible. I got to watch much of it. No personnel were lost in the operation, while a large number of Baghdadi's fighters and companions were killed with him. He died after running into a dead-end tunnel, whimpering and crying and screaming all the way. The compound had been cleared by this time, with people either surrendering or being shot and killed. 11 young children were moved out of the house and are uninjured. The only ones remaining were Baghdadi in the tunnel, and he had dragged 3 of his young children with him. They were led to certain death. He reached the end of the tunnel as our dogs chased him down. He ignited his vest, killing himself and the 3 children. His body was mutilated by the blast. The tunnel had caved in on it in addition.
So the president is describing here the actions of an utter coward. Someone, and again, do we know what we would behave like if we were caught under U.S. military bearing, as he said, bearing down on us? Well, I can tell you I wouldn't use my kids as human shields. I wouldn't make them run down a corridor with me so I could kill them. Now, I could see if he'd run down the corridor thinking, I might be able to get away down here. And then he took his kids with him, but he only brought his 3 children with him as kind of an insurance policy that maybe the troops wouldn't follow. And when he saw that the dogs were coming in, he blew all of them up. He didn't want to come under our command and control, as in being taken alive. He didn't want to be taken alive. I can understand why he wouldn't want to be interrogated by our troops, but we don't torture. But he would have been permanently out of the situation, like, basically carted off to Guantanamo Bay to live out the rest of his days. And he didn't want that. But why did he take the kids with him? Why would he take his own kids and blow his own kids up? I mean, last act on this earth, blow his own kids up. So the Washington, not the Washington Times, the Washington Post. This is so disgusting. They actually had their statement about this guy was that he was a cleric, a reclusive cleric. So again, was he just a reclusive cleric? Was he just somebody who taught, people how to be better Muslims? Or was he the leader of a terror organization that blew up just thousands of people when they can take responsibility for the deaths of thousands of people? I mean, okay, so I'm not going to sit here and just try to figure out what their problem is, because they're obviously democracy dies in darkness shouldn't be their header. It should be news comes here to die. Whether it's dark or light outside, news comes here to die, because we just make stuff up. That's what it should be. That's what their little slogan or header subtext should be. Now, we know that the Syrian-Turkey border is a mess. We know that there's, a lot of different kinds of things that we can say about the region. Not many of them are good. It is always going to be a total mess over there because of the biblical split. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go back to your Old Testament and read about the 2 sons. The Arabs are the descendants of the one son who wasn't blessed, and everybody else are descended from the other side. And that is why there is perpetual war between those 2 factions. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, called a austere religious scholar at the helm of the Islamic State, dies at 48. It was the Washington Post. Democracy dies in darkness. Here's the quote from them. Yes, he had a spiritual gift, said the owner of the Ahmed Ibn Hanbal Mosque, Khalid Ahmed Ismail, adding, his soul was connected to the mosque. Mr. Ismail recalled how, without being prompted, al-Baghdadi, a nom de guerre he had adopted when he became a militant, would lead the other boys in cleaning the house of worship. So apparently this genocidal crazy man was, as a child, a sweet kid who cleaned the mosque. Weren't all of these genocidal maniacs, before they became genocidal maniacs, Lenin, Stalin, Chairman Mao, any one of them, Hitler? You go back to their childhoods, and as kids, what do you think? They were standing on the chairs in the classroom saying, when I grow up, I'm going to exterminate, 6 million Jewish people. I'm going to lead my nation to wage war on every other nation nearby. No, they were kids. So why would the Washington Post go out of its way to try to make this man seem like he was a normal individual, to normalize him, to give people in America who are on the fringe and their brains don't work right anyway, an opportunity to say good things about someone who he didn't just kill Muslims, he killed Americans. He set a Jordanian pilot on fire. He burned that man alive for gratification. They hung people by their hands and feet tied together and hung them upside down. And while the others laid on the ground dead, just carcasses everywhere. They had prisoners that they accused of being spies. They drowned them in cages the way people used to drown rats. Human beings, not given due process. Thousands of Yazidi girls were raped and murdered, kidnapped, raped repeatedly until they were almost dead, and then murdered. This man, he didn't just sit by while his workers did this stuff. It was his idea. This was his way of keeping terror alive by doing the most heinous things in front of cameras so it could be broadcast on YouTube to strike fear in the hearts of his enemies. And so did that work? Oh, wait, I almost forgot one. Countless thousands were murdered by ISIS in every imaginable way. Beheadings, buried alive, mass shootings, explosions, terror attacks. ISIS, that's what they were about. So what's the motto for us? What do we do? What does our military do? I know one of my favorite ones for the military that we were taught way back when I was in the active duty was we break stuff and blow stuff up. So that's what our military does. But there's more. There's more that we do. We hunt down genocidal maniacs and we make them cry and run. We loose the dogs on them and we make them blow themselves up. The same kind of death that he visited upon so many thousands of others, he visited upon his own self. And others who tried to shoot down our helos as they came in, they were the recipients of our hottest rockets, our hottest ordnance rained down on them. And they quickly learned that there are no virgins waiting for them, just the hot, fiery reality of separation from God for eternity in the just bowels of hell. Because Satan doesn't give you extra points if you killed a lot of people. You're down there suffering as well. So we have some time here. I want to hear President Trump. He had some more descriptors for this raid. He was just brilliant in this. I give him so much credit for being not just presidential, but the seriousness and the gravity of what he had to say. It came through. That photograph of him in the Situation Room, him outside on the tarmac, him traveling and gaggling with the reporters and when he had the opportunity to, all of it, excellent. Here he is.
The compound for approximately 2 hours. And after the mission was accomplished, we took highly sensitive material and information from the raid, much having to do with ISIS, origins, future plans, things that we very much want. Baghdadi's demise demonstrates America's relentless pursuit of terrorist leaders and our commitment to the enduring and total defeat of ISIS and other terrorist organizations. Our reach is very long. As you know, last month we announced that we recently killed Hamza bin Laden, the very violent son of Osama bin Laden, who was saying very bad things about people, about our country, about the world. He was the heir apparent to Al-Qaeda, terrorists who oppress and murder innocent people should never sleep soundly, knowing that we will completely destroy them. These savage monsters will not escape their fate, and they will not escape the final judgment of God. Baghdadi has been on the run for many years, long before I took office. But at my direction, as Commander-in-Chief of the United States, we obliterated his caliphate 100% in March of this year. Today's events are another reminder that we will continue to pursue the remaining ISIS terrorists to their brutal end. That also goes for other terrorist organizations. They are likewise in our sights.
So other terrorists who are out there, see what happened to al-Baghdadi, see what happened to Osama bin Laden's son, Hamda, and they have to be thinking, we need to fortify ourselves or move to other safe places because we don't want the U.S. troops to come and take us out. And President Trump is saying, just wait, we'll be there in a minute. We'll be right back.
This is the story of a very special woman. Just a few knew about her superpowers. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Why was the basketball court all wet? Because the players kept dribbling on it.
The dad joke. Corny, groan-worthy, but also one of the simplest ways to share a moment with your kids.
What did the buffalo say when he dropped his son off at school? Bye, son.
So take a moment to make your kid laugh, because dad jokes rule. Make your kid laugh today. Go to fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
If you love them enough to listen to them practice the same song on tuba,
Please be done.
over and over and over and over and over, then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're correctly buckled in the back seat.
Sounds good, honey.
Check today at nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Hope you enjoyed your meal. And I just want to say, he's lucky to have a brother like you.
Lucky? Caring for my brother is far from easy. But he's a part of me, like my arms and legs, so I'll be his. No time for tired. Nothing can disable this love. He needs me, but I'm the lucky one, even though I need help now and then.
If you're caring for a loved one, visit aarp.org/caregiving for care guides and community support for your strength. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Okay, men, this is your time. Maybe you didn't choose this, but you're here now. You're gonna go out there and be an all-star caregiver. Cook, clean, be there emotionally and physically. You gotta dig deeper. Drive them to physical therapy, doctor's appointments, because that's what caregivers do. Don't give up. Show the world that you're tougher than tough.
Caregiving is tougher than tough. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm your host, Smokey Cole Bear, filling in for Smokey because after 75 years of...
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Turns out there's much more to say. Nearly 90% of wildfires are caused by us humans being careless, dumping our used barbecue coals willy-nilly. Guess the song was wrong. We did start the fire. That's why I respect Mother Nature and her trees, whether coniferous or new car scented. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to Stacy on the Right.
Oh yeah, welcome back to the program. So I have so much more to get to, and we're in the last segment. So I want to run through all of these things. I want to call attention to those who are over in the chat room, killing it. What? Yeah. There's a lot of great information being shared in the chat room at stacyontheright.com. You might want to head over there and check it out. And I want to call out some of the friends who are there. You gotta love the people in the chat room. Big Ron is back. Smoke, Chi, Tracy, and others. Lots of people in there having a good time. Let's move forward here. So Secretary of Defense Mark Esper was on the morning shows on Sunday, and he was talking to Martha Raddatz, and she was asking him some questions about the different types of gunships that were used, just a lot of different details. Really good questions, I thought. And the answers that he gave were fantastic. And the other thing that I thought was pretty interesting, because I kind of clipped out her questions and I just gave you a straight run of what he said here. And it's about a minute and a half, and we're going to listen to that. And then I want to talk to you about the other big part of this story. Obviously, a horrible terrorist was killed. Second one we've gotten this year so far. Victory for the United States. Praise God. We give all glory to him for his giving our military the ability to go out and hunt down evildoers, put them in the ground, and come back unharmed. That is the way that I love to see it every single time. And the other big story was that the president kept news of the raid from certain individuals he felt were not trustworthy, who would not be able to hold their tongues and might place the lives of our soldiers in harm's way. We'll get to that right after this, but here's Secretary of Defense Mark Esper.
Right, Martha. Let me first say, as the president said earlier, this is a great day for America. It's a great day for the world. The president made a bold decision to launch this raid, and our military service members and our interagency partners executed brilliantly. So here we are, Earlier in the year, we defeated the physical caliphate, destroyed the physical caliphate, and now its leader is dead. So it's a great day. Well, the stars started lining up some time ago, and in the past couple weeks, a week or so, the operational forces, which were one of several options available to the president, started rehearsing and practicing and doing what they would have to do on the objective. And it wasn't until Thursday and then Friday the president chose his option and gave us the green light to proceed as we did yesterday. A heliborne raid, if you will, onto the objective in Idlib province. Good, very good intelligence work. We had cooperation from partners. And of course,
help from the Kurds?
Well, we did have a number of aircraft, different types, principally, well, I don't want to get into details, but principally the CH-47s. Helicopters, that's right. And to put the raid force on the ground. And they were on the ground for 2+ hours. They did early on. There were locals in the area and others, but of course some of the helicopters took fire, and of course we returned fire in self-defense. He's in a compound, that's right, with there are a few other men and women with him and a large number of children. And our special operators have tactics and procedures they go through to try and call them out. But at the end of the day, as the president said, he decided to kill himself and took some small children with him, we believe.
So there were a number of children who were rushed out right away, 11 kids immediately upon arriving and taking the compound. U.S. military got 11 kids out. But at this point, remember, a compound, we're talking about an enormous structure, many, many, many buildings, some of them connected together, and kind of a main residence type of situation. And the president described how they went in and they knew they were going to receive some pushback. Some people readily gave themselves up. Others tried to return fire and were shot and killed. They didn't kill any children. Our American troops didn't kill any kids. They tried to save them. But some of them, some of them were running and trying to assist, but basically providing a little bit of room for al-Baghdadi to get out of there. To maybe for him to be able to escape. But what he realized was that he had nowhere to go above ground, so that's why he went below. Unfortunately, maybe he didn't know that tunnel was a dead end. Maybe they had another tunnel for him to escape out of, or maybe they hadn't completed the escape route by the time this raid went on Sunday. And so they just he wasn't able to get out. But he took kids with him anyway, because if he'd left the kids behind, the U.S. Armed Forces would have secured those children to safety. So that's the kind of demonic garbage that we had going on with this guy. So you can find the clips that I played from today's show at listen.stacyontheright.com, which is the podcast site over at Fireside. And there's a lot of good stuff here. So first off, I want to talk a little bit about this successful takedown of Baghdadi having Democrats scrambling. So first of all, the Democrats don't want to give him credit. Jake Tapper cut away from the president's announcement. While the president was speaking live, viewers of CNN had Jake Tapper just cut away. Unbelievable. I mean, I'm sorry, y'all, but you mean to tell me that being a hater of President Trump is more important than hearing an announcement that he's making right live on television about a U.S. military operation that has netted something that even President Obama had as a goal? President Obama wanted this guy killed too. He was the leader of ISIS back then too. President Obama wanted him snuffed out as well. And if the U.S. military had been able to accomplish this under President Obama, the mainstream media would have given Obama all of the credit. That's how they roll. They would have given him all the credit. But since it's Donald Trump, they're scrambling. So there's a ton. Several Democratic leaders, I won't say a ton, several, have been complaining recently, including Senator Chuck Schumer from New York, that the White House had no real plan to combat ISIS given the recent troop pullout from Syria. So what they did was they took the fact that the president was pulling out of Syria and allowing some other government to take control of that war-torn, civil war, impacted country. They were using that as a talking point to try to convince the American people that Mr. Wonderful, as he calls himself, or, a nickname that some have given to President Trump, that he didn't have a plan. when in fact, they don't know what he has because they wouldn't even sit down with the president. If the president said, I want to give you guys, kind of bring you up to speed on what our U.S. military leaders have kind of laid out as a plan for Syria, the Democrats wouldn't even sit down for that conversation. You know it and I know it. So they don't want to know what's going on. They just want to take whatever little news bit they can take and fashion it into a crude billy club and beat the president with it. So there's no more compelling sign of message failure on the part of leftists than NBC's most recent Saturday Night Live this past weekend, running an ill-timed sketch suggesting that Trump had created quote-unquote jobs for ISIS. Just hours before the president, they literally had this sketch run on Saturday night, which I don't know about you. I didn't see it. I didn't see that sketch because I don't watch Saturday Night Live anymore because it hasn't been good since they had Kristen Wiig on there and she'd say, I'm sorry. She would say something and then she would say, I'm sorry. And it was probably one of their last best skits that they had on there. It was one that was so good. I had kind of committed a couple lines of it to memory. And my husband would come home and I would kind of trick him. He'd come home and he'd go, what's for dinner? And I'd say, oh, I forgot to cook dinner. Sorry. I'm sorry. And then he would look at me like, you could see the look on his face is, I'm hungry, woman. Are you serious? And I'd say, I'm just kidding. I cooked. And then I would pull it out and he'd say, oh, he'd start laughing. I really could do a good Kristen Wiig impersonation back then. So just hours, they didn't know. They didn't know the president was going to have this raid go on, which again, I'm not giving president credit for actually running the raid. President Trump didn't run the raid. The U.S. military leadership did, but he knew about it. He knew it was about to go down. It had been in preparation for weeks. And when they went to execute on it, they let the president know beforehand so he could go to the Situation Room and oversee it, take a look-see. Not run it play by play like Barack Obama tried to do, but just be in the room in that space so he could see it go down so he could talk about it tomorrow because it's his thing. In the end, as a leader, commander-in-chief, I should say, of the U.S. Armed Forces, it is his responsibility. So here he is. Hours after they make fun of him on television on their garbage show that is not funny anymore, he has a news conference announcing that he's killed the head of ISIS after destroying the caliphate and running them out of Syria. Yeah, that's my dry, I can't believe they tried it face. They tried it and it didn't go well. The sketch aired around the time the 2-hour late night raid in northwest Syria was underway. Awkward, as the young people would say. So the ill-timed Make ISIS Great Again joke that SNL was trying to smear Trump with was around the same time Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi was being killed. So it doesn't get much better than that. They literally are making fun of themselves. They say Trump while they're doing it, but the people who look like idiots, it's them. So now let's get over to this story. There was a bit of information about how he didn't let Nancy Pelosi know. The president did not share the information about what was going on in the raid with Pelosi or Schumer. And the reason that he gave for that was that he felt that there might be leaks and those leaks might lead to the deaths of soldiers. So the details were kept from them. He told Sunday morning shows, President Trump did, that the U.S. military raid in Syria was done in secret so as not to have compromised the mission. Now, Vice President Mike Pence said it wasn't because there was a lack of trust there. Okay. When asked if he notified Pelosi beforehand, Trump said he did not because he didn't want any members of the U.S. forces to die. He said, no, I didn't do that. I just wanted to make sure this thing kept secret. I don't want to have people lost. Now, Pelosi issued a statement after the death was announced, criticizing Trump for not informing leaders of Congress beforehand. She said, quote, the House must be briefed on this raid, which the Russians but not top congressional leaders were notified of in advance. Now, what do we do? This is basic military operations 101. Class, I'll play the teacher here. What do we do when we're having operations? We're going to have operators in a certain theater of war. What do we do first, friends? Students will answer, we notify other partners and operators in the area that we are having an operation. Why do we do that? So we don't take friendly fire. So you don't have to notify Congress every time you're moving from one theater to another, but you do have to notify the other people in the area. That's why part of the reason why the mercenaries were killed. They weren't official operators. They weren't recognized by our military. And therefore, when they got in the way, they were snuffed out because they had no designation. They had not given notification that they were going to be operating in the same area as our troops. And so without any verification, notification, any kind of thing that would tell our troops that these are friends, they were foes, and they were wiped out quickly. So to avoid having our troops wiped out by Russians or anyone else who might be in the area, we have to let them know we're running a mission. We don't have to tell them exactly everything that's going on, but we have to let them know we're running something. Yeah, that's to keep our troops from being killed. Pretty simple. So President Trump said he did indeed notify Russia beforehand that the U.S. would be active in the region because Russia currently has a presence there. The president said he didn't reveal the purpose of the mission. Now, I know some people, a lot of Democrats, have Trump derangement syndrome to the point where they can't understand something as simple as what I just outlined there. But for the rest of us, we get it. Okay? We get that. So we notified some. Others are being notified now as I speak. We were going to notify them last night, but we decided not to do that because Washington leaks like I've never seen before. This is a result of their own action. So if they want to be trusted by this president, they need to zip it and sit down and listen and wait for information to come to them. And then when they get it, resist the urge to tell people in the news media. But see, these people are angling for contributorships and jobs at CNN and MSNBC afterwards. So they're trying to cultivate relationships by leaking information. So if your contributorship job is too important to you, congressman or congresswoman, so-and-so Democrat, then yeah, you ain't going to get news when our operators are moving from one theater to another. And that's because our operators are not just valuable assets, highly trained weapons, human assets, but they are also American citizens who wear the flag backwards so that the United States military flag, the United States flag on our military only moves forward. That's an interesting little tidbit. Look it up if you've never heard of it. The reason why we want to protect them is because one day they're going to come back here to this country and they should be permitted to live out the rest of their days in peace, not having been endangered by leaky, loudmouth, TDS suffering congressional members. Ouchie. Didn't get to all the stories, but tomorrow's another day. God bless you. Thanks for being on with us today.